Hello everybody and welcome back. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Deborah Hatswell and you're listening to BBR Investigations. As we know, sightings of large non-native cats are on the increase in the UK. Each week brings a new newspaper headline, photograph or video of a suspected panther or leopard. Not a week goes by that I don't receive an account from a member of the public that has encountered one of these creatures whilst going about their normal day. Dog walkers, drivers, farmers, hikers, hill runners, all manner of folk come into contact with them. They also report them and are not taken seriously. Some are even attacked by them. Recently, there was a disclosure that DNA was found which was positive for cat DNA. Yet I know of one case where a DNA sample was taken in 2003 and tested at two labs that has been hushed up for years. It's never mentioned, and that comes from an investigation carried out in Lincolnshire. A study of those hairs revealed that they belonged to an animal from the leopard family. The large black cat had been spotted frequenting an abandoned caravan in the garden of a retired couple named Sandy and Julie Richardson. They actually filmed it before calling in the police, who attempted but failed to capture the animal. A sample of the hairs was taken from inside the caravan and passed to DNA Bioscience, a company that carries out forensic work for analysis. Rebecca Webster, the operations manager, said, "The core of the hair is not that of a domestic cat. The outside of the hair shows evidence of a scaling pattern that is consistent with an animal of the leopard family. It is a very exciting sample." Ms. Webster also sent a sample of the hair to another lab, which was based in Pittsburgh in the United States, because she wanted a second opinion. Their analysis confirmed the hair was from an animal of the genus Panther, a subgroup of the cat family that includes lions, tigers, leopards, and jaguars. Mr. and Mrs. Richardson encountered the large cat on their land on the outskirts of Hemingway near Horncastle. "About 18 months ago, I saw a paw print the size of a tea plate outside the back door," said Mrs. Richardson. "That was the first time we noticed anything, and I took a plaster cast of it, but it fell apart." In July, Mr. Richardson, a 66-year-old retired plastic worker, saw a large black cat making his way down the side of the garden. A few days later, he said, "I went into the caravan at the end of the garden, looking for a new spring. I needed the new spring for my grass cutter, and I turned around, and just by chance, there it was, sitting on a mattress, staring at me from just a few feet away. It was about 4 feet long, plus the head and tail of it, and the size of it was about 1.5 Labradors. It was black, with yellowy orange eyes, which were evil to look at. Totally dead and soulless," he said. "It bared its 4 big yellow-brown teeth, but it didn't make a noise, and then it started walking towards me. Its body was sleek and very well muscled. It kind of rippled when it moved." More recently, evidence was presented in DNA form that puts the UK government in a position where they'll have to finally admit or deny publicly that Britain has a number of large cats who seem to not only survive out there in the wilds, but viewing the numbers reported, seem to be thriving. But they could just hush it up like they did the earlier report in 2003. Several strands of a black animal hair have been collected from a barbed wire fence that is said to belong to a big cat. The hair was collected by investigators who were called to a farm following a sheep attack in Gloucestershire in 2022. A forensic lab then tested the hair and analysed it using mitochondrial DNA methods, and it was 99% match to a leopard. The investigation in 2017 began when the Gloucestershire farmer found one of his lambs dead. Through social media, documentary filmmaker Matthew Everett got in touch with the farm and came to investigate the site. Everett's team took swabs and sent them to Warwick University for testing. Sadly, they contained no results. However, the jawbone of the sheep, which had tooth marks on it, was sent to the Royal Agricultural University in Cirencester for analysis, and the indentations in the bone were confirmed as potentially belonging to the molar and premolar of a big cat. In 2022, the same farmer contacted Mr. Everett again to report another sheep attack. He said it was a large lamb that was attacked this time. It weighed at least 35 or 40 kilos. There were what looked like two canine puncture marks on the skin of the lamb. And at the time we thought, well, it could just be a dog worrying, but we weren't really sure. There was wool sprawled out across the ground, as though some sort of struggle had taken place. We checked the perimeter for access points and there weren't any. But there was a wall that was very high where something could have jumped down quite easily. And that's when we saw the wool and hair on the barbed wire fence. This time the team recovered the clumps of hair and sent them to a laboratory for mitochondrial DNA analysis. After the test, it was quite clear it was a positive result. The laboratory had requested to remain anonymous. As I said, it's not the first time black cats have been suspected of living in the UK, let alone Gloucestershire. And it's also worth noting that footage of a large black animal has been previously captured just a few miles away from where these sheep attacks took place. Another local man made this report after a spate of large cat sightings in Gloucestershire. Mr. Phillips contacted the local newspaper to share his experience, and he said, back in 2006, when myself and my wife lived in Upper Slaughter, just outside Burton-on-Water, we both spotted a black panther on the edge of the wood on the farm we worked on. My wife saw it first, and then I saw it when I went to see where she was. It was just sitting there staring at us, and it stood back up and slowly walked off. I remember seeing that distinct black tail. After speaking with the local gamekeeper's wife about it, she confirmed that about an hour before our sighting, she saw a large black cat trotting up the field next to the woodland. And come to think of it, there wasn't much in way of rabbits, etc. in the area at the time, and we're in a pretty rabbit-prone area. A man who saw a big cat cross a field when he was out walking his dog says the public need to be mindful since he witnessed a big cat for himself, and he has come across what he believes is evidence of a big cat. Mr. Cartwright said, I was out walking my dog in a field where there are some great trees surrounding it. There was an old hollow oak tree, and I think it had been sitting there watching and waiting for us to leave. He believes these creatures have colonised, and he's warned dog owners of the risks walking their dogs if they're out later than dusk, he said. There's a gate of the field to a towpath, and as I turned to shut the gate, I saw that cat run across the field. I went back into the field to see if I could get another look at it, but it was never to be seen again. It was a beautiful creature. It was a big black cat, and I could not believe the size of its tail. The 63-year-old is a keen fisherman, and he explores the countryside as much as he can. He said on his walks he stumbled across bones and half-eaten carcasses of what he believes had been from a big cat kill. He said, I was out walking and I came across a deer, which had been half-eaten. There was a clear puncture wound on its neck, which is a typical sign of a big cat. It only takes one bite to kill its prey. I went back to the area on Friday, and there was nothing left of the deer, but you could see the grass was flat where the big cat had laid down and then gorged on it. A well-known TV presenter, Claire Balding, spotted a mysterious creature in the Wye Valley while she was recording a BBC Radio 4 show. She said she saw the cat in May of 2023. It was a large black cat that walked off into the woodland. As Claire was mid-interview, she was unable to comment on it live. But after the interview, she said, it completely disappeared when it walked off into the woods and it just went. I could point out that I never knew that there were stories of a big black cat around here. So when I saw it, I didn't even say anything. I just thought, oh, look, that looks very big to me. And it didn't scuffle. It was kind of very confident. She was interviewing Roger Smith at the time, a village footpath officer, who told her there had been stories of big cat sightings ever since he moved to the area 20 years ago. He said, well, who knows? No one's actually got to photograph it up to now, but I saw it. I saw it really clearly, sitting here. I seen a black cat here the size of a Rottweiler, and our friends have seen a big cat feeding on a deer carcass. After the recent story featured in the news, I thought you might enjoy hearing some of the large cat cases that have been shared with me over the years. A recent case came through from a lovely lady. She emailed me named Sue Pemberton, and she shared her experience of seeing a black cat. She said, "Hi Deb, I contacted you to share my Black Panther sighting I had back around 2010. I can't remember the exact date, but I can remember what I saw and how it's made me feel ever since. We moved to Ulverston, Cumbria in 2008 to be closer to my son's school. One day I went on my daughter's school trip and I was with her. We went to a chaperone, we went to the War Museum in Manchester. I wasn't allowed to sit next to my own daughter and I didn't know anyone else on the bus, so I was just sitting next to another pupil. We joined the motorway going about 50 mile an hour. I remember coming to some roadworks, I'd say no more than 20 minutes later, and I was just watching out the window, enjoying the sunshine, and I saw the big cat. Looking through the window, I saw this lean, black as night panther, as big as what a panther would be. It was walking calmly, wasn't running. It jumped up onto a stone wall that surrounded the field. It had a long tail and it was slender. Its coat was shining black. And at this point, the coach had passed, and I shouted out, "Did you see that? Did anyone see that cat?" No one saw anything. So there I was, surrounded by a busy bus full of 9-year-olds. I don't know what the kid next to me thought. She said, "I'd like to hear from anyone else who might have had a sighting in the area at the same time as me. Hopefully, because if you see this beautiful creature, you can't miss it. It's the size of a black panther, and it stands right out sitting on a wall about 40 metres away from you." Now, hundreds of reports of large big cats have been received by the Cumbrian police over the years. One local woman saw a large cat as she was running in the hills around her home. Claire Harvey is convinced that what she saw was a big cat. Claire said she saw the creature twice in the space of a number of minutes, and the second time she saw it, it was no more than 6 metres away. Miss Harvey said it was the most terrifying experience of my life. I just stood there, looking at it, and it was looking at me, and its tail was up, swishing. Claire was on her way down the Pike of Blisco, which sits above the Rhinos Pass, during a solo walk in June 2021. It was about 6 p.m. when she first saw the cat, and she said at that point it was about 100 yards away from her. She said, "When I first saw it, I thought, oh my God, this can't be real. I quickly ran behind a rock. I was panicking, thinking, I hope it doesn't see me. I actually thought it was going to maul me to death." She said she waited a couple more minutes and she didn't see the cat anymore, and the sheep were just grazing happily. So she began to doubt what she'd seen. So she continued with a walk down the mountain. But just a minute later, she encountered the cat for a second time, and this time it was much closer to her. She estimates it was around 4 feet in height. She said it came down one embankment and then it stood underneath the other one on the other side. She described slowly making her way back up the hill before running. She said the only way down was the path along which the cat had gone. So in desperation, she made an SOS call using her phone. She described being told over the phone to calm down and that there was nothing up there with her. Claire said, "I was in a meltdown. I bawled my eyes out. I was hysterical." So eventually she resolved to pull herself together and started down the mountain again, staying as close to the crag as she could. I would imagine she was absolutely terrified. I would have been. The potential existence of big cats in Cumbria is not something she'd seriously considered before. She said, "I've never really put any thought into it. You can say this, that, or whatever you want, but I know what I saw. I know what I was face to face with." Now, this report is very close to a disturbing report of a young man who was attacked by something when he was walking home from work one evening in July of 2015. Nick Bowden has little recollection of the encounter that took place next to Tarnhouse Wood between Coniston and Hawkshead. The incident happened when the 26-year-old, who works at the Queen's Head, said he felt something hit him as he walked from a friend's house in the pitch black. 30 minutes later, he woke up with deep 5-inch gouges on his left shoulder and what appeared to be 4 claw marks on his forearm. Nick said, I don't know. It all sounds a bit far-fetched, I know. It just seems very mysterious, but it happened. I know those woods quite well, so I have no problem walking in the dark. All I remember was being hit from my front right, and because I smacked my head when I fell, it was all a bit hazy. It wasn't until I got back to Hawkshead that I realised how bad it actually was. Now, an earlier set of reports were made in 2012 when a mysterious big cat was spotted roaming wild for the second time in a week. Jenny Banks was driving home when she spotted the large panther-like creature amble across the road in front of her car. Jenny had been travelling along the Eastern Way in Carlisle on her way to Wetherall, when all of a sudden the big cat appeared. To the left-hand side of the road were some houses, and beyond the pavement to the right was an area of woodland. Jenny, who was 26 at the time, said, it was not quite dark, but it was gloomy enough for me to see me with my side lights on. I thought it looked like a big black Labrador because of its size, but as my car drew level with it, I looked again. I stared in disbelief as the creature stood at the roadside, its head turned back towards my car. Its eyes gleamed in the headlights, and it had an elongated black body and a long curling tail. I saw it as clear as anything. I was within about 20 feet of it. When I saw it, I was in shock. It was a big cat, right here in Carlisle, beside the road, and it was just surreal. She said there were no other cars around, but I know what I saw. I called in for some shopping at Tesco. I told the woman on the checkout, I've just seen a panther. She must have thought I was mad. As soon as I got home, I rang the police and I told them what I'd seen because the creature was so near to those houses. They were very nice about it, and they said they'd log it with all of the other sighting reports that had come in. Now, like many who have reported big cat sightings, Jenny never expected to see such a large and exotic animal running along the roadside. But just a few days earlier, a bus driver in the area, Stephen Allison, saw a black panther-like creature in a field near Rockcliffe village, just north of Carlisle. In January of 2021, Mum of 4, Sharon Larkin, took a photograph of what she believes is the elusive creature's paw print, and she said, I've been looking into panther sightings for some time now. There have been big cat sightings in the Stainbourne area near Workington, some in last July, and some over the last couple of weeks. It has been seen in a field near the road that goes past the Briery Hotel. She went on to add, I spoke to a dog walker who told me he'd seen a panther-like creature, bigger than a Labrador dog, and it was crouching in the field in the afternoon, just watching, and the next minute it looked up, and then it got up. To begin with, he thought it might have been a dog, but when it stood up, he saw the long tail curled at the end, which is a classic sign of a panther, she said. Sharon has spent hours watching and waiting in the area, armed with a camcorder, hoping for a glimpse of the big cat. On her latest investigation in a muddy lane near Stainbourne, just below the bypass, she discovered what she believes could be the first tangible evidence of a panther. She found a distinctive paw print, its size markedly bigger than that of a cat or even a large dog. She said, I am absolutely convinced there's a creature out there. It's been seen in Stainbourne, Ennerdale, and now Rockcliffe. The big cats cover a radius of about 40 miles, so it could be the same animal. I think if we go back to 1920s, there was the Beast of Ennerdale. Is an area that she actually mentioned. Around 300 creatures were killed by an unseen animal. Just over 2 years ago, similar reports of a large puma-like cat were seen prowling on waste ground near the Cumberland Infirmary in Carlisle. Records obtained under the Freedom of Information Act show that there have been 9 reported sightings of big cats in Cumbria in the last 6 years. Those are just the ones that report to the police. I'd times that by 3, mate. People see them and don't even report. These 6 include accounts of a large straw-coloured beast twice the size of a normal cat, lurking at Wetherall Cemetery, and a huge lynx-like animal on the prowl at Applethwaite, near Keswick. Other reports include claims of a puma in a field at Bolton near Appleby in 2004. The witness in that case said it was jet black and larger than a dog. Another concerned caller said there had been a panther-sized, fawn-coloured cat on the hill at Troutbeck Bridge near Windermere in March of 2002. While in Barrow, a resident said they saw a black panther. That panther was seen going into the rear of a house on Duke Street. In August of 2016, a former chief of police believes that he's caught the elusive beast of Cumbria on camera. Kevin Pitt, 63, a former chief in that panther was seen to go into the rear of a house at Duke Street. And then, in August of 2016, a former chief of police thinks that he's caught on camera the beast of Cumbria. Kevin Pitt, 63, is a former chief superintendent with Cleveland Constabulary, saw what he believes to be a large, non-native black cat on a railway embankment at Eden, Cumbria. He spotted the panther-like creature from outside his static caravan that is at the Wild Rose Caravan Park at Ormside near Appleby, Cumbria. Mr. Pitt's wife Jackie was the first to see the animal about 7:40 p.m. and she drew her husband's attention to the creature that was walking along the Settle to Carlisle railway line. He said the cat was about 250 metres away, walking nonchalantly across an embankment close to Mill Bridge. Mr. Pitt also said, I phoned the police straight away. I wanted to let the local farmers know because I don't want them to be blaming dogs if they're a sheep that are killed. Mr. Pitt went on to add, my wife said, look over there, look, there's a really big dog. And I said to her, that's not a dog, that's a cat. You could tell by the way it was walking. It also had a muscular lump on the back of its shoulders. It wasn't in a hurry or anything. It was like it was strolling along. We weren't scared or anything. It was quite nice to see. When I was reading this report, I noticed the mention again of embankments. This time, railway embankments. Set up the same way as the motorway verges are. These areas also have ease of travel, plenty of food and habitat sources. They're an easy route along farmland, woods and rivers. At night, many of them are unused, especially in rural areas. There are also hundreds of old disused tracks that crisscross the countryside. The next case I'm sharing happened just a few weeks ago, and the chap who reported it was fine with me sharing the details. In fact, Rob has an interest in the subjects and he's often out investigating, and he was happy with me sharing the exact area. Like our first witness, this cat was also on land adjoining the motorway. As any cat owner knows, cats like long grass to conceal themselves when hunting, and high areas like motorways and railway embankments where they can survey the land below for prey. They are often reported in areas with rocky quarries and reservoirs. In a man-made landscape, animals adapt and overcome. Our roads and railways have replaced those rocky outcrops in the mountains, in the same way that golf courses and moorland have replaced grassy savannas. Rob said, Hi Deb, hope you're well. I just wanted to pass on my sighting of a big cat to you. This happened 3 months ago when I was walking through a wooded area in Brighouse, just off the Junction 25 exit of the M62. I was walking through the woods as I do research into the unknown, cryptids, etc. Anyway, on one of my trips, I was walking through the wooded area off the main pathway, and roughly 20 feet ahead of me, there's this black cat, and it crossed right in front of me. It was huge, and I saw it as clear as day. I'd say it was a panther, but I'm not 100% sure. It crossed my path, looked directly at me, and then just carried on its way. As we're driving along, we often see birds of prey above our motorways. They are also looking for prey from high up. This would give us an indicator that there are enough food resources found along these routes for wildlife to take advantage of. A quick one-stop shop for any meat-eating carnivore to visit. Also, with plenty of cover, water sources, and habitat, a large predator could theoretically move around unseen. One area of the UK that is well known for its cryptid creatures is Thetford Forest. It's also another area in the UK where it's said there is a large population of breeding cats. One man contacted me to share some information from the Breckland area, and he said, "Hi Deb, I live in Thetford and I've spent my life in the forest at work and recreation. I'm usually around the woods in the Breckland area. Growing up, I used to go plinking with an air rifle as a young teenager on the outskirts of Thetford, rabbits and squirrels to feed to my neighbours' rescued owls. On one occasion, whilst laying in a thick hedge, my friend and I witnessed a lynx come out from the belt of trees opposite us, and it caught a rabbit. We knew instantly what it was, as we were both devout Attenborough fanboys, and every book on big cats, etc., that was out there we'd seen. We were belittled and laughed at when we tried to tell people what we saw, so we were pretty much forgot about it and just cracked on with life. As a 16-year-old, I began working on a local estate, helping with the pheasant shoots. The gamekeeper mentioned finding a weird deer carcass, so I asked him if he'd seen a lynx, and he replied no, he hadn't, but he had seen a deer carcass up in a tree, and he also found a tree with scratch marks up its trunk. This made me feel a lot better, as you can imagine, because he knew these woods and the natural animals that were in there. So if this kill stood out to him as unusual, it must have been unusual, and he didn't scoff when I suggested the possibility of a big cat. While studying for an ecology degree, I worked at a local nature reserve. One day, my boss and I went to check another smaller reserve close by, and we met a fellow there who I subsequently found out from my boss was a contractor who dealt with pest species. He had recently shot 2 dogs that had become feral and was at the location we met him at to remove something with 3 cubs. I then found at the UEA library a survey which included a sighting of a lynx by 2 students undertaking a survey at Thetford Forest. The plot thickens, as they say. He said, "I changed career, largely forgot about it all over the years, until about 5 years ago, whilst driving from Brandon to Thetford around evening time, when it was dark. I and the oncoming vehicle had to brake sharply, as the silhouette of a large animal flew across the road. I continued driving, repeating in my head, round head, deerish body, long tail. This went round and round in my head a few times before it sank in. I just witnessed a large cat, but this time I knew it wasn't a lynx. I'm adamant it was a leopard, or very, very similar. Interesting to know that there is a registered keeper of large cats, etc., in the very area, so the area probably smells bang on for any feline." Moving on, 2 weeks before Christmas 2019, whilst I was en route to work in Hingham, Norfolk, I caught sight of the back end of a creature. I could see hips, bum, tail of a large animal going through a hedge. It's a crap single width road, so I was only doing around 20 miles an hour. So I could quite clearly see that it wasn't a dog, or indeed one of the hundreds of feral ex-domestic cats you get in the area. Sadly, there are dozens of them shot every year by gamekeepers. Talking this week with a mate at work who said his wife is a vet in the area, it seems that it's common knowledge to some landowners, farmers and gamekeepers and vets that there are large cats roaming the area, Deb. Another listener contacted me to share his experience with large cats in South Devon and at the White Cliffs of Dover, amongst other places, one of which was viewed close to a main road. Our witness name is Tricky Dicker, that's his YouTube name, and he said, "Hi Deb, before I knew about the alien big cat phenomena here in the UK, I spotted a large brown creature that was skulking among gorse bushes just up a hill from the southwest coastal path, west of Saltcombe in South Devon. I assumed at the time that it was a rather strange looking, huge thing, but nowadays I think that there's a 60% chance that it was a puma of some kind." In 2006, I saw with 95% certainty what I believe was a lynx sunning itself in a scrubby field behind the National Trust White Cliffs of Dover site in Kent. On Christmas Day 2022, about 7 a.m, I drove past what appeared to be roadkill. It looked at first like a massive brown dog, but I only got a fleeting glimpse because of the lack of daylight and the winding nature of the road. This was on the A346, just southwest of Hungerford, near the Wiltshire-Berkshire border, in a relatively rural and remote area by southeast England standards. Then on the 28th of January, I was driving on the A338 just south of the village of Chalderton, near Wiltshire's border with Hampshire, about 7 a.m. in the morning. On a fairly sharp bend in the road, I saw on a track ahead what appeared to be a large puma laying face down just feet from the road. I assumed that it was dead, but I suppose that it could have been sleeping or hiding or lying on its prey. His tail was very long and muscular, and I would say there's a 70% chance that it was a puma. I would have pulled over, but it was still dark, and the A338 is quite bendy, and it's a potentially dangerous road anyway, particularly in that location. Mere conjecture on my part, but the mention of a possible dead cat raised the thought. What happens when a member of the public finds a dead cat? I'm sure it must have happened at some point. Some areas like Cannock Chase have over 15,000 reports in a 10-year period. There must be the odd carcass found. I believe our governments are well aware of the large cats roaming here. They are certainly reported to the police. We know due to the results from the Freedom of Information requests made over the years. Even the ex-police chief wasn't believed about his experience seeing a large cat from his caravan. So what chance do us mere mortals stand? One trick the powers that be use is ridicule. If you report a large cat, no doubt the newspapers will make you look like a complete crank. And woe betide you if it's in a well-known area like Bodmin or Dartmoor. That's an easy fix for the newspapers to put the beast of Bodmin strikes again spin on it, just like our next case. A black cat was seen in Fowey Cross, the 4th of the 2nd, 2020. A dark, mysterious creature ran across a country lane, prompting some to question whether the legendary beast of Bodmin is on the prowl. The last feral feline was spotted near Fowey. One woman posted on Facebook community page saying a large dark animal had run out in front of her car. She said, I was driving home tonight when a huge, what I thought was a black dog, ran out in front of my car near the Fowey Cross turning. I had to brake hard. Not to hit it, but now thinking back, I think it might be a black panther, as it had a huge tail and long legs. It was very muscular. How I didn't hit it, I'll never know. There were lots of cars in front and behind me, so I'd like to know if they saw it too. It was so quick. A local man commented on the thread and explained that when he was driving to work, he saw a large cat that he reported to the police. He said, I saw one a week ago at the back of Polruan on my way back to work very early in the morning. I reported it to the local police. Another resident in the area said, my husband saw a very large cat many years ago on the back lanes around Llanlivery. It was a big, tan-coloured animal. It had a long, thin tail, and it was a big, tan-coloured animal. And at first he thought it was a big fox, but it was way too big. It came out of nowhere alongside the car. Over the years, there have been dozens of sightings of the so-called beast of Bodmin, the scary beast, the Surrey puma, all ridiculed and ignored. Whether you're in Harwood Forest, the woods of Weem, or across the waters to the Emerald Isles, there will undoubtedly be a report of a farmer who has a large cat on his land, many with animals attacked and partially eaten, sometimes carcasses strewn out in the fields. So often that some of them no longer report the deaths. Mentioned throughout the reports tonight was some of the strange animal carcasses found, which would suggest the presence of a big cat. I have a couple of reports that you'll find shocking, one including an entire deer left in a tree, and a big cat researcher who had something in his camp after baiting the area. On the 25th of the 8th, 2012, a second deer carcass was found hanging from a tree near Ayr. The roe deer was found by a member of the public in a field at Millview. It had been suspended 9 feet in the air by positioning its broken hind legs around a branch. Its ears and a large section of its face were also missing. The SPCA spokesman said the average weight of roe deer is around 10 to 25 kilo, so it would have been possible, maybe for an adult, to have done it. Just 3 years later, more animals would appear in more mysterious circumstances. A pair of roe deer had been discovered in Monklands with horrific injuries. One of the tragic animals was found in a woodland near Shorehead just a few weeks ago, and the other in a field in Carnborough. Both grisly discoveries were spotted by the same man. Speaking about his first gruesome find, the man said, "I was just out for a walk in the woodlands when I noticed some human footsteps in the snow and a lot of blood. And at first I thought a person had been attacked. There were marks in the snow, as if something had been dragged along the ground. It was a deer, and it was such a cruel thing to do." And earlier this week, the same man spotted another deer. He explained, "I was out walking with my metal detector, and it was around 4:45 in the afternoon when I found another lifeless deer in the field." In December 2021, a farmer told police in Wales how he'd found carcasses of one of his lambs dangling from a tree after spotting a big cat prowling through his fields. Billy Davies now has fresh fears for his flock after seeing the black cat for a second time. He said it is the latest sighting of the creature. He described it as a big cat, and he saw it in the South Wales valleys. Another man from Aberfan said, "It's very worrying. You're watching the sheep all the time. The lambs are coming up March and April, so I'd really like to catch it by then." It was just 2 days after a coach driver, Robert Davis, 61, said he witnessed a large feline in the same area across the road near Merthyr Tydfil as he returned from work. The two locations are just a short distance apart along the A47. Mr. Davis said his wife also saw a big cat, which he said was about 3 to 4 feet in length. I phoned my wife as well just to make sure I wasn't imagining things, but she was seeing it as well. In Ireland, a farmer made a report after his flock was attacked by a large cat. A dead sheep was discovered in a field by County Antrim farmer Paddy Brown, who believes his animal is the latest victim of a big cat. Mr. Brown reported the incident as well, but it was passed off as happening by a fox or a badger. During the summer, beasts were spotted regularly by tourists in the area, and an animal was seen on 5 different occasions in Bushmills, Benvardin and Ballyboga. They also found livestock slaughtered. The last report I want to share with you tonight is a case from the Chilterns, where a big cat investigator got more than he bargained for after baiting a trap in a large cat known area during his investigation. This happened 2017. "Hi Deb, I've followed your page etc. for a while, and to be honest, I always found Bigfoot in the UK a bit of a push, to be honest. But I'm very open-minded and I'm quite well known in big cat research in the southeast. I've camped out many places overnight, spent days out in the woods in the search of big cats. I am curious though. About 5 months ago, I had a very scary experience while solo wild camping over some bait that I'd set up in the valley, trying to film big cats. I'd set all this up earlier and I was just waiting in the hopes of luring something in. I'd settled down at camp by the fire and was just sitting quietly, and I noticed I wasn't alone anymore. At first, I only sensed it, but after a while, it seemed like something would approach me to within perhaps 20 metres of camp and go back again. I could hear breaking sticks and ground movement, and I actually thought something was throwing things in my direction. It really sounded like something was throwing branches to get my attention. Whatever it was, it stayed just out of sight of the fire. There were no lights on when I'd shined my torch in the area. I just don't know where the sticks were coming from. Nothing could be seen. It was very strange, and I thought at first somebody was having me on. It's a long walk there and back for a prank, but I was certain someone was out there. I would actually shout out to it, and I'd bark and do my best dog impression. I kept thinking it was poachers. Eventually, it all stopped and went quiet, so I settled down for the night. Later that night, I heard a huge bang and a crash. I thought it was a gunshot, but thinking about it now, I think it was a tree limb being whacked against another tree. I just got up and ran out of there. I went back to get my stuff the next day. The camp was fine, nothing was touched. He said I was camping in the Chilterns and it was in Mantles Wood near Missenden. I live very close to there and I actually found a sighting of a hominid about a mile away that happened 20 odd years ago. Do you have many sightings in the Chilterns, Deb? I do. I do have reports close to the Chilterns, and I also have reports where something is moving around camp, but keeping itself hidden all of the time. And then there are the growl reports. When someone's walking between two embankments, when they become aware that they're being shadowed by something, then they hear a growl, so blood curdling they don't know whether to run or to freeze. Or when the growl heard at home outside your window. But that's one for a whole other podcast. Thank you for joining me tonight. And before I leave, I would like to say to my subscriber who often leaves me comments on my Podbean podcast, I'm really sorry. I can never reply because I don't actually have a Podbean account, so I can't leave a comment. But I do get to see yours. They email them into me. But yeah, I needed to get that one out. I will be back at the same time, the same day next week. Thank you to all our new listeners, and a massive thank you to people who tune in every week. Please give this video a like or a share. Show it to your workmates. Put it on your social media. You never know, they might enjoy it. But until then, I'll be back next week. Good night, everyone.